Well, hello, creatives, community, and kind folks out there. Welcome to Future Friday. I am your host, DBJ, and welcome to Future Friday, where we talk about all things transhumanist today. The Eclipse phase RPG, Altered Carbon, the Expanse, and so much more. Thank you for joining me on this Future Friday and many more to come. Today we are going to talk about something called the MUSE. In Eclipse phase, there is a device, an implant, a character function ability known as the MUSE. But for those who are unfamiliar with it, it can also be described as, say, like a neural computer implant. It might be, some may consider it a communications device. Others may think of it as a internal hard drive of sorts, and maybe even an AI that rides inside of your brain, all of the above. So please bear with me. We are going to describe what it is first, give a little definition, and try to get us on the same page. And then we're going to see how the sausage is made. Like, how do you handle it in your game? We're going to do a little bit of meta talking. As game masters, how do you handle 3 to 5 to 6 PCs with the capability of basically doubling their access to independent and external intelligence sources? And matter of fact, in addition to that, like, how do we handle that both in-game and then narratively, how do we handle it as well when we also have NPCs who have the exact same capabilities? Sometimes it can be a little daunting, especially in science fiction, to keep track of the technology. So, guys, for all of you who don't know, this channel is currently simulcast every day, Monday through Friday, on Twitch, YouTube, and Discord. The Discord server specifically is over at Fantasy Grounds College. Just join their Discord server, and on the left you'll see, just slide down past the administrative offices and all the classrooms, and you'll see the boiler room where all the cool kids hang out. So that's where we are today. All right, so what is a MUSE? Now, the term MUSE it's basically slang, and I would suggest that game masters and players out there, feel free to change the name of this device. This name could be regional, based on habitat by habitat. It might change based on the game you're playing. Absolutely, it will not be called this in the Altered Carbon role-playing game, but there are many settings where an onboard artificial limited intelligence is available to one or more of the PCs. And in transhuman thought, we tend to think of these things as probably being ubiquitous. Nearly every single every person of humanity would probably have one, or maybe multiple ones. All right, so a MUSE, let's begin with a cell phone. Your today's phone. And imagine it's small enough to fit on your wrist, like a watch, and we kind of have that already, right? And Dead Man even says might not even exist in the Altered Carbon role-playing game. I would say that it may exist, but not at the level at which Eclipse phase has it. Some form of AI may exist in these worlds. Now, mind you, there are many reasons for not having ubiquitous AIs all around, depending on the setting and the history of the world, whether they've been outcast or severely hampered or controlled or restricted or something like that. But a MUSE is like your cell phone, but shrunk down to the size of a watch. We do have watch capabilities, but they really don't have all the capabilities of your cell phone. But imagine the screen disappears and it shrinks even further down to maybe the size of a ring, and there's a holographic image projected above you, maybe in the palm of your hand or off the side of your arm. And then imagine that same device shrunk even smaller, maybe to the size of a head of a nail, a grain of rice. And then imagine that device isn't visibly in your hand, or isn't something that you attach to yourself or wear, although it is called an ecto in the eclipse phase game setting. But imagine it being implanted in the base of your skull, and it now has full integration into all of your sensory output and input, so that it sees and feels everything that you do, and is able to project information, including haptic information such as sense, smell, and touch, and taste, and images into your eyes. Now, we have plenty of visual references for this. The most notable visual reference I can think. Hey, Julius, there. I do agree. The time zones can be a blessing sometimes. But it says, would a virus be a muse? We're going to go into that one in just a moment. So, a muse is an internal cell phone, computer, communication device, altered reality device, layered virtual reality device, an assistant. Deadman says implants are often called EDOs, as opposed to much like the difference between something external to your body, an ecto, and an internal, an endo. Now, by the definition in general, that a muse is often paired with an individual pretty early in life. And the muse, much like our cell phones and our computers, we have altered them, and then they learn from us all of our all the things that make us who we are. How we like our toast, what time of morning we need to get up, our favorite foods, our favorite music, whether we like the fan on, or a little bit of noise while we sleep, whether we like, I don't know, cotton versus polyester sheets, what size clothing we like, how we like to dress and act, and our favorite celebrities, and so on and so forth. And the muse ends up becoming something that is predictive. It's like all of your Google searches, all of your Amazon Prime searches here in the States, all your Amazon searches, all of your social media clicks and likes and down thumbs and videos you watch and movies, and all that metadata put together into your ALI, your artificial limited intelligence, to the point that it predicts what you want. And much like the stereotypical assistant on a movie set where the producer's all angry and it's like, "Where's my latte?" And then some assistant comes around the corner and is like, slams the latte into the person's hand in the middle of their tirade before they're getting ready to go off. Your muse is the exact same thing. Now, a muse could be considered like a neural implant device, some kind of computer, whatever it may be called in your transhumanist game. And now the thing is that they are both capable of independent activity, much like, Tony Stark and his various Iron Man suits have undergone quite a bit of transformation when it comes to his muse in his device, right? You get to see Robert Downey Jr. with the floating matrices around his face, and then at one point it begins to have a greater sense of verbalization and even predictive ability, bringing to him phone calls from a loved one, telling him about his injuries, warning him about going into the vacuum of space, or a frigid location, or how many enemies there are. That's exactly what it does. Now Tesla says, does a muse have its own cortical stack? And I'm going to go back to what Julius Grasmy says. Would a virus be a muse? Now, here here's how I guess you guys are kind of going into more of we're going to flow into the meta knowledge of this. Now, according to the game, whenever you re-sleeve, that means whenever your character, for whatever reason, by force or choice, your personality goes back into a cortical stack or you're beamed somewhere else, your muse goes with you. And there is a little bit of a contention as to which, if your character is forked by choice or force, meaning that you Zox yourself, you make a copy of yourself, is there a duplicate muse with the copy? And could your muse be separately downloaded into a stack or something separate from you? The answer to all that probably is yes. Now, based on the setting that you decide for your game, and we'll probably go into this next week, that despite all the knowledge, I mean, it's like a 400 plus page book for Eclipse Phase. Despite the vast amount of information they give you, they specifically leave a lot of things open. They don't exactly tell you what a muse looks like. If it is a separate device that happens to be attached to a cortical stack, I would say it is as combined and separate and as malleable and as immalleable as the plot demands. And I know that's a little bit of a cop-out, right? But for player characters that want to, because guaranteed player characters like, I'm going to fork myself into an army or something like that. Do all of them get a muse with them? And the simple answer to that is yes, but no. and that may be just because of the game master. Like, I'm not letting you play 18 characters with another 18 muse on top and then take your muse and put it somewhere else. Now, the idea of does it have a different cortical stack? Like, could you beam your muse into, say, a mechanical drone? Maybe you're a player character who surrounds themselves with small little limited AIs, and they're like your pets or you're like your best friends or something. Yeah. Deadman says page 434. 434. A page of the PDF hard copy is likely the same. Yeah, it explains. It goes into a lot of detail as to some of the ramifications of having this muse around and what it can do. But let's get into some of the meta knowledge before we start heading into the setting. Okay. Hey, who in the world? Tina Rovincent. I can't. I'm gonna call you Tina, or I'll call you Rove. Thank you so much. Thank you. I haven't gotten to affiliate level on Twitch yet, so if you are a Twitch affiliate, I would really appreciate someone, having you follow me or something over there. So yeah. Yeah, it looks like it's. I don't know. It's possible we could have gotten that. One of the moderators could go over there and put a stop to that if that's a problem. Becomes a problem. So anyway, yeah. Hey, we're talking about transhumanism. We do get glitches in the frame, right? So, yes, we do have moderators. By the way, now over the meta knowledge for using and abusing your game. And let's be frank, okay? Half of the problems in other role-playing games are easily solved by the muse. And what do I mean by that? Have you heard this argument before? Okay. Game Master says, you guys are acting on meta-knowledge. You guys haven't even communicated with each other. There's no way you would be able to act on the knowledge of your other player characters because you wouldn't even know that information. Guess what? With the muse, even first of all, there's ubiquitous communication with everyone. Like, it's instant. Usually it's line of sight. Even if it's not line of sight, you can take it for granted that one person's muse will consolidate all the information from one player character, and the minute they're able to communicate with the other player character, they're going to squirt them that information to the other person's muse, filter out all the crap, right? Delete those past emails, those delete the bot information and the spam email, and give them what they need to know. In other words, just because the PCs aren't located near each other, their muse communicate with each other probably constantly, if not at the moment that they are able to communicate with each other, unless the plot specifically details that communications have been shut down. Maybe shut down by law enforcement, or a corporation, or a solar flare, or radiation burst, or launch of a nuclear weapon, or something of that nature, explosion of a nuclear weapon, right? Just assume that happens. Okay, here's another one that happens. The player character and the game master get into an argument, or even the other players get into an argument because of you can't see around the corner, or you don't see me looking into the locked chest. I'm the only one that can see the magic item in the locked chest, right? The rest of you guys don't see what's going on. Again, instant communication, recording devices, they record every and all experiences. Unless a player character specifically goes out of their way and says, I specifically do not want to communicate anything I'm seeing in this room to anyone else, unless they specify that, pretty good chance that if you're a firewall agent, that your muse is not only recording everything, they're also sending that darn information out to everyone else, right? So, yeah. Now, another problem comes up with what we consider in the game known as info dumping. A very hard thing for us to do as game masters and dungeon masters in many games is dump a lot of info. Basically, player character arrives in unknown location, and now you've got to hard stop the game, go to your notes, whatever, and read off 5 pages of information that your player characters may or may not know. Maybe another situation is the player characters come into the third game, they have to talk to an NPC, and maybe you're the dungeon master that folds their arms, and you're like, I'm not going to remind you of the names of anybody in the game. Listen, that's what the muse is there for. Do the players remember the NPC's name? Of course they do, because even if they don't, their muse is going to remind them, which is basically the same thing. Okay? So, basically what this is it's the best of metagaming that you can ever find. Do they have this information? Of course they do, because their muse found it out for them already. When they arrive at a new space station, you can give them the Foder's tour guide, a high-level version of what's going to happen. When they arrive just before they arrive at the space station, you just get all the PCs together and you say, hey guys, listen, your muse sends you an image of the space station when it was first built, and runs you through a montage of its glory days as starships, and ego casting is at its highest, and they're involved in space mining and pharmaceutical development, blah blah blah. And then, but lo and behold, after the mutiny of 2187, the place went into disrepair, and there is no information after that. Oh, and by the way, the local languages are Hindi, Chinese, and Russian, or something like that, right? Like, very easy to dump that information. And guess what? The muse travels with them. So if you need your players to know a particular thing, or warn them about something, your muse knows it. It already knows. Much like Google or Wikipedia being on all the time, that's what it's there for. It's the easy button to, like, not have to worry about explaining every little detail of everything in a big giant info dump. Just they take it along with them. You as the person running the game are like, oh, I forgot to tell you about this rich oligarch from this tech company. Well, guess what? Do it in game. your muse pings you the information about the rich oligarch that runs the hypercore or something like that, right? Doing it real time as you speak at that very time. One player character sneaking around and says, "Hey, I just found the blueprints to this complex or something. Can I send it to the PCs?" Here's the easy answer. Don't ask me, Ken. You send it to your PCs, right? Now you have the blueprints to this place, and there's a, I don't know, there's a hidden chamber or something that's not detailed on the blueprints, and it's kind of strange. Oh, ding ding, maybe that's where they're keeping this person that we need to rescue or whatever. You know what I mean? Though that's what it's used for. It's very easy shorthand. Very, very easy shorthand. Now let's get into some of the meta problems. The Muse, this implanted AI, despite how limited it is a force multiplier. Force multipliers. Yeah, Julius Grasmy says, well, what can't a Muse do? It is a force multiplier in the sense that a Muse, very much like your cell phone or a computer or a search engine, communication device, and all the above, what it can't do and what it isn't is it is not a fully realized AI. It is very good at what it does and nothing beyond that. Yeah, Deadman says it can't do anything physical. Not only that, but it is solely based around the individual that it is helping. I know this sounds kind of strange, but let follow me on this. The Muse does not have an original thought in its head. It is solely a completely dedicated assistant for the person that is involved in. So an example would be, I'll take me for example. I know nothing about fashion, nothing about it. So my Muse would have just as much information about fashion, i.e., nothing. It knows nothing about fashion. So you could ask your Muse to go find out information about fashion, and it would bring that information back. You could even ask it, could you buy me an outfit that is most appropriate for the fashion of this place? And it can do its best to try to fulfill that. But it is not the easy answer to everything a player character cannot do. A Muse is not a second character at all. As a matter of fact, a Muse can actually be affected by stress. Yes, it can be affected by stress. Not stress in the terms of seeing things or experiencing things that are traumatic that a human would, but seeing and experiencing things that would be traumatic to what a computer would consider traumatic. Meaning like, hey Muse, go buy me an outfit because I need it for a dinner party, and then somehow law enforcement shuts down all communications. Now the Muse might be confused because it's like, well, I'm supposed to do this thing. How can I buy this outfit for my owner, and law enforcement shut me down? What am I supposed to do? Am I supposed to wait? Do I wait for the emergency to go over? Do I tell my owner that I can't do it? I mean, I don't want to disappoint them. Now I'm being kind of silly here, but the limitation of the Muse is that it is not the easy answer to every single answer. It's a search engine. Much like, okay, here's a good example. You're in a movie theater. You're in a mall. You're in a crowded transportation vehicle, whether it's a train or a bus or something, an airplane. Someone suffers some kind of physical injury. Everybody there probably has a cell phone. Does that make everyone a neurosurgeon or a paramedic? And the answer is no. Everyone there can very easily look up information on symptoms and injuries of someone that gets hurt. But only a skilled doctor, paramedic, nurse, hell, even a veterinarian, at the moment that someone keels over and is suffering from some affliction, is actually appropriate to the situation, despite everyone having access to all human knowledge, right? Now, someone says, so I want to give you the name. Kiwi Nam says, so there are conscious muse. Are there also unconscious muse? Now, here's a weird thing. A muse is always on. If you're asleep, you're unconscious, you are in a coma, your muse is always on. It wakes you up. It may order you food. It can buy you items that you need for your next day. It will contact contacts for you while you sleep or are injured. It can call. It can call for help, whether it's calling for the authorities or other player characters in the group. It will do these things for you. Remember, it's an assistant. In every best form of the word, it is an assistant. But that assistant, much like a secretary or the person that gets you the coffee while you're screaming at people directing a movie, right? It only has the abilities that an assistant would have. It is not a medical doctor, but it can call a medical doctor. It knows that you're suffering from, say, a medical trauma, and will try to do its best to get help for you. But it is not a medical doctor. Now, mind you, the reason why I say there's a little bit of an asterisk for this, because various Muse have skills in Eclipse Phase, and I'm sure for other games that have transhumanist ideas in it. And so, if you have the ability to modulate some of the skills your Muse has, it could have some of those capabilities. Like if your character, let's say you're a soldier, and you're able to pick and choose some of the skills it has, maybe one of the skills your Muse ends up receiving is a medical skill, because as a soldier, you need a frontline paramedic next to you, whether it's in your brain or what have you, to help you out. So is it possible your character gets shot and is unconscious or bleeding? Could your Muse then activate one of your drones to grab a nano machine or a device or something? Come on, kitty, and help you out? Is it possible? Hell yeah. Yeah. You need to reach over to the slap patch to get it on your wound, but it's too far away, and it does something mechanically to activate something else. Yes, absolutely. Yeah. Deadman says Black Mirror Season 2 Episode 1 includes the process of making a Muse, and it's pretty torturous. Yes. Now, here's another thing that a Muse can do for you. While it technically is inefficient in combat, for example, it really is not capable of robotically aiming a gun while you're shooting at other people, or activating an explosive while you're doing some other things. Technically, it can't do those things, but what it can do is be programmed to actuate the things you have already set in place. So an example would be if you set an explosive device 30 minutes earlier, and you set a signal that you want to send a signal to have it explode, you can then tell your Muse, listen, at exactly 29 minutes, I want you to start the 60-second timer to set off the explosion as a distraction or something. Or you can say, all right, Muse, I want you to decipher the alien artifact that we found and continue trying to decipher the language on it, but I'm in a running gunfight, so I want you to continue trying to decipher the language. So your Muse having really no effect. I mean, it's not affected by adrenal, the panic in your body, the pain you're going through. Your Muse is just like, whatever, I'm going to keep on working. I'm a computer. It can continue doing mental processes while you're physically hindered. I'll go back to Iron Man in the Marvel movies. When Iron Man gets his rear end bashed around inside of his suit, the Muse, the onboard AI is like, sir, you're injured. Maybe I should get some help for you. And he's like, stop it. Leave me alone. I'm trying to do something here, right? Or what does he say? Call Veronica or something, and sends down the Hulkbuster, right? So a Muse, again, as an assistant, doesn't set up the things you do in combat, but it could be the communication device during combat, right? Please send a signal, or contact send a very well written email to message to that very rich oligarch that we need to get the hell out of here, or send a message to someone in the black market because we need to dark cast our way off of Luna, and the authorities have shut down the ego casting port, and there's no way for us to get out of here. I need them to communicate, and that's how, getting back to some of the game mechanics as well, that's how you are able to pull on your reputation because of the reputation economy. Yes, are the player characters specifically live acting on their reputations and calling in favors from the reputation? Yes. But there's also your muse handling your reputation, the reputation economy. Let's say you have an alliance to some anarchist league or something, and you're a hacker. You discover a backdoor to the Morning Star constellation on Venus, and there's a backdoor system into their computer, whatever. Your muse, handling your reputation, records that information and might squirt that information out to the networks in the anarchist league because maybe, just maybe, somebody out there might want that information. Much like today in social media, right? One of your favorite movies or books or a meme or a story idea comes to your mind, and you go, you know what? I went to this restaurant. I think other people would like this restaurant. And you click, boom, send a picture. Hey, I was really having fun at this concert. And you do these things on your own. Imagine your social media assistant, much like very famous people have. They have a social media consultant. That your muse is your social media consultant, sending out images and pictures and coordinates and things on your behalf 24/7. Yeah, Kiwi says, never thought of that episode like that. Yeah, it very much is creating a muse. Now, let's get into some narrative things, because we talked about what it is. It's basically an onboard AI that works for your benefit. One last thing. Before we get to the narrative part, got a glitch there. How do we handle them in game? Now, both in the rule book, and I'm going to repeat what's in the rule book because I've brought this up many times. Because it's a force multiplier, and you have, say, 5 player characters in your game, it's possible you're going to have 10 plus individual moving parts in the game, because each individual has a muse, much like playing Dungeons and Dragons, where every ranger has a pet, right? It's like, oh, you're rolling your eyes, like, really? I'm going to have to handle and juggle all this? The easy answer to this is, first of all, don't ask for die rolls if success is already a byproduct of what's going on. Here's what I mean. In game, let's say there's 4 player characters. They arrive at a very, very open and legal, well-traveled space station. And they arrive there. And classically, Dungeons and Dragons, and even in science fiction, some of the players are like, you know what? I'm going to find a place to stay. Someone else is like, I'm going to contact my underworld connections. Someone else is like, I'm going to look up what current bounties there are. And the techie in the group is like, I'm going to find extra parts and see if I can find, whatever. And they start talking about what they want to do when they get off the spaceship. The muse will understand their personalities enough to set up these connections already, right? Just assume that these things are already being done in the background, so you don't need die rolls. Hey, very rich elite player character, I've already set up the penthouse suite for you. There is fine clothing and a great meal waiting for you when you get to your room. And then internally, like, oh, thank you. And that's why your muse has a name. Why, thank you, Oleander. By the way, leave a sizable tip for the concierge. And then the muse answers back, Oleander answers back to the player character in their own head. I've already done so. I'm just waiting for your okay when you get to the room. I figured you'd prefer to see the room first. And like, no, I trust your judgment, Oleander, right? it's internal a conversation happening from their muse. Assume success when the muse is involved because it's happening all the time, right? You don't need to have die rolls and stats and all that kind of stuff. Presume that the player character that's the underworld character has a muse that's in the underworld. Remember? Those kind of things. Yep. Deadman even says that that each drone also contains a muse equivalent. Yes, or nearly every device in sizable device in the Eclipse phase world has an ALI, an artificial limited intelligence. I guess you'd call it ALIs. I would shorten it to ALIs and AGIs and or AGs or whatever. But yeah, an artificial limited intelligence is in nearly everything, and their intelligence only extends to their capabilities. So there would be an ALI in a refrigerator, and the refrigerator will when you go up to the refrigerator before you open the door, it tells you what's inside of it and whether you might like some of the items inside of it and how you would like them chilled and those kind of things, right? Now, when it comes to game mastering all of this, you as the game master, it's not necessary for you to handle those as NPCs yourself. That's too much of a workaround, right? You can let the player character role play their own muse, but I would highly suggest writing this stuff down on a 3x5 card, or some equivalent, even if you're playing online, and let the other players play the other players' muse, especially when they are separated. So if you have to split the party, let somebody else play Oleander, which is the muse inside of someone else's head, and let them play that personality out, right? If one player goes down and they have to re-sleeve, and I believe even at the fastest it takes an hour to re-sleeve. Is it 10 minutes for a synth and an hour for a biomorph? Anyway, I'll challenge you guys. Someone find out how long it takes to re-sleeve, not under traumatic conditions, into either a pod, a biomorph, or a synthmorph. So anyway, yeah, when one player's down, whether by force or choice, let him play somebody else's muse. Yeah, Ricker says, what we've done in 5e is exactly just that. We have someone else in the group play the wizard's familiar. Exactly. And that way you can establish a personality beforehand, right? Maybe this person's personality is very accommodating, or maybe the personality is kind of contentious. So let's get into some of the narrative things, okay? Now, the game, if you read some of the example characters, those characters have a muse with its own name. And much like our own pets, our own family members, our best friends, our rivals in life, as a matter of fact, our imaginary friends, they all have different personalities. And we all communicate with people we know very deeply in very different ways. The same should be done for your muse. And this is all completely narrative. So on one hand, maybe someone's muse is nothing more than a tool. It has zero personality. It is like a soldier's best friend, right? All it does is just splash information, practical, relevant information inside of their visual centers, and that's it. It doesn't talk to them. It doesn't remind them of things, except tactically. Your muse might just be a complete tool in the literal sense and the a-hole sense, right? It's no nonsense. It doesn't care about your feelings. It just spits out relevant information. Your muse tells you when you're going to die. You have a 16% chance of dying at this moment. Should I beam your consciousness? That kind of thing, right? It may not even be polite. It might even not say please or thank you. It's like, you're dying, 16% chance, that kind of thing. Deadman says, resleeving a pod or synth, by the way, thanks D, is very quick from backup. is one action turn. Ooh, wow. Resleeving a biomorph is much longer, about 30 minutes. Yeah, and I would contend probably I would use those time frames for an artificial brain versus a biological brain, meaning there are synth morphs with biological brains in them. So I'm thinking it's a 30 minutes for a biological brain and a one action turn for a mechanical brain. That's how I would do it, adjudicate it. But someone could argue with me and change my mind, I suppose. Yeah, Rickard says what we did was also to give the smart more familiar. Oh, the smarter familiar be played by the player who played the low intelligence barbarian. Okay, yeah, that way the player was given an outlet for smarter ideas. I get it. Yes, 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 yes. Thank you very much for that. Right, if you're playing, I'm going to stretch this out a little bit. So Rickard is saying that like in his D&D game, the dumb barbarian is played probably by a smart player, and so then plays the smart familiar so they can get out those smarter ideas. And that's a great way of doing it, to allow, let's say, the character who's very not intelligent or a bruiser or not very agile could play the muse that's maybe inside of a drone that's very intelligent, or maybe a character is played that's not very perceptive, but then they play a muse that is very, very analytical and very vigilant for the one that they're watching over. Now, when it comes to personalities and your muse, you can play this in many, many different ways. For example, a muse could be very overprotective of their owner, warning them of dangers all the time, waking them in the middle of the night because of perceived dangers, warning them not to go into dangerous areas. A muse might might act and do things, and here are some great plot ideas, right? A muse may act on information that the muse has that the player character does not have. An example would be the very rich elite glitterati player character gets the hotel room and gets the penthouse suite, but the muse finds out that a rival rich entertainer oligarch corporate hypercore person is also in the hotel and cancels the room. Player gets there and is like, what happened? And the muse is like, I'm sorry, but I canceled your room. You're like, well, why the hell did you do that? It's like, well, I found out that there's other agents in the hotel, so I took the opportunity to cancel the room. And then you could have a little role play session like, what did you do that for? Now you just alerted them that I'm leaving and I'm on to them. Get me that room back, and I want that room back now. And all this could be happening internally, and you as a game master playing this out, just be having some fun or whatever, and then they overcharge you for the room, what have you, and whatnot, and play a little bit into that, and then maybe the person gets into the lobby of the hotel, and one of their rivals is like, oh, I didn't think you were coming, because maybe their muse talked to the other muse that found out that the room was actually canceled but then rescheduled, and then you could play it off like, I didn't like how they prepared the place. I heard they had really bad ratings or something, and so on and so forth. Like, you could play this up so much. Now, Kiwi Nam says, is a muse so vital that you could not do without it? And what would life look without it? I guess this is more of a setting question, though. No. This is actually quite relevant. Most people in this world, when their muse goes down through like a glitch, maybe a literal computer virus affects it, maybe some kind of reboot happens to the player character due to some kind of trauma, most people are so confused. Let me give you an example. Okay, everybody in this chat right now, take your phone, dunk it in the nearest toilet, and find out how you'll act when you do that. Just pick up your phone. Go. I'll wait. go to your toilet and just take your phone and go gloom, dunk it right, drop it in the toilet. What kind of panic happens there, right? Go to some public place and get ready to leave, and as you're leaving the door, you start feeling your pockets. So you're like, "Where's my phone at? Where's my phone? Where's my phone? Where's my phone?" Everybody. Oh, here's another thing. Someone grabs your phone and hands it to you and says to you, "Sorry, I hit the hard reset button. I deleted all your contacts and your apps and the songs you downloaded and your photographs. Sorry about that, but here's your phone back. It still works." How long will they be your friend, right? It's the equivalent there, Kiwi Nom. It's the equivalent. Could you get all that stuff back? Of course. Maybe it's sent to the cloud. In game, when you re-sleeve from a backup, your backup will have a copy of your Muse from that point in time. So if your backup is 15 years old, it will have a copy of your Muse from 15 years ago. I suppose if you have backup insurance, you don't have to re-sleeve from your old backup, but you could probably get the old Muse backup, which doesn't know your quirks and features from a 15-year gap, as an example. But I absolutely agree that would definitely be the thing. Deadman says unsleeving a pod or synth is the same, a one-action turn, which brings to mind the first season of Altered Carbon, when one of the characters in the group is in a room. The main character is in a room surrounded by biomorphs, and the naked woman runs out with a katana attacking, gets cut down, killed, and immediately then, as I guess a one-turn action, re-sleeves into yet another biomorph running at the person with a katana, which is kind of cool. That's kind of a cool idea, right? Although naked fighting with katanas is its own cool thing. Anyway, Rika says, so you could in theory have your Muse augment the character and player at the table, so you can have a carefree gambling Muse be played by a carefree character. Yep. Character's player and such, so you don't end up double dipping into one persona. I absolutely agree with you. And here's the thing. A Muse... Okay, how do I describe this in the best way possible? A player does not necessarily have to be on the same page as their Muse, but their Muse may have the best interests of their owner. So an example would be a very introverted individual could have a very extroverted Muse to pull them out of their shell, right? Now on the outside, this person might dress real fine, say the right words. There is an episode, I don't know the exact season and or episode of Black Mirror, but there is an episode of Black Mirror where a guy goes on a date, and he goes on the date and tries to talk to the young lady. And on the date, in his head, there's a chat going on with other people helping him on... I'm sorry, there's an individual helping him on the date, and the individual helping him is also broadcasting the date to other people in the chat, which is weird. But anyway, for this example, the person going on the date, trying to say the right things, ordering the right foods, making compliments externally, he sounds like an outgoing guy, kind of smooth and everything. But internally, he's just like, I am friggin' scared. And the Muse in his head is giving him suggestions. Give her a compliment on her dress. Why don't you order this drink? It's really popular this season on Mars or something like that, right? And so a Muse could very much say to a player character, like the Muse could say, the player character's like, no, I'm not really going to go out. I'm going to stay back in my lab and tinker on my drones. And the Muse is like, no, you're not. I already got you tickets to the latest nightclub. You're going out today. You're going out tonight. And it's like, no, I don't really want to say. And then all of a sudden you get a bing, 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 bing. You're like, what's that? Oh, I invited party goers. You're leaving. they've already brought an outfit, and then you hear a knock on the lab door, like, "Hey, buddy, we got your outfit right here. You're coming with us." And the person's like, "Oh, I can't believe my muse made me do this. God." And guess what? That's a great narrative way to get your player character who likes to turtle up a little bit to get the hell out of their shell and be exposed to the rest of the world. Because remember, it's not you against your muse. Your muse has your well-being. It has your well-being in hand. Your muse would never specifically lie or cheat or steal from you if the muse did not think it was in your best interest at hand with the information it has at the time. Your muse would never specifically put you in danger or make you go bankrupt or ruin your reputation or anything if it didn't think it was for the best. Which is why in Eclipse phase, the muse has a trait, the ability to do psychotherapy through the use of psychosurgery. When you suffer trauma, and that trauma and loss can be from any number of things, it's there to talk to you. I would dare say that it would help you not go insane if you were put in solitary confinement as well. Yeah, Rickard says, quote, I have scanned your adversary. Their stance looks really sloppy, not to mention that they have 0 electrical footprint, so no plasma or laser weapons. You can beat the crap out of him, no problem. Don't worry about it. It will be easy. And that's exactly right. And you know what you just did there, Rickard? You just told them, you know what? You're a higher level character than they are. Or, you know what? You have an 85% chance to beat this person, right? That's in-game, that's exactly what that is. Hey, like you said, I've scanned your adversary. Their stance looks really sloppy. What does that mean? Guess what? Your character who's got a 70% skill, a skill of 70 in Eclipse phase, in martial arts, and you're this person, I don't know, person who wannabe thug is trying to push you around. Yep. yeah. Player looks at his combat skill 0. Muse, come on, live a little. Yeah. Now, if you really want to have some fun with it, I would suggest that your muse does put you in awkward, strange positions, like, I don't know, getting punched out by the local bully at the local tavern or something in the space station, and then come to find out that a very attractive, empathetic person that you have a sexual attraction to, and they have a sexual attraction to you, comes over and helps your bloody nose and is the contact you've been looking for. I mean, could a muse have that much insight into what would happen if it pushed you into a fight? If you wanted to play that out and you're a player who's like into that kind of thing, you don't even need die rolls for that, right? But it would be rather funny to have a character who's like always got like a black eye or a bloody nose or like their arm in a sling or something just for some random reason, and everyone's like, "What happened to you?" Like, don't ask. Don't even ask my muse. Now, a muse should have a personality of various types, whether it's no nonsense, literally no nonsense, no personality at all. Maybe it's more like a valet or a butler or a maid. Hey, what can I do for you, sir, ma'am? Yes, please, thank you. Do you mind if I, right? It could be very much like that, very formal, very standoffish. I would go so far without changing the game statistics to have your onboard AI even be something other than an onboard AI. Here, follow me on this. Maybe your character was a soldier and one of their most trusted individuals died in battle next to them. And through their experience with this person, this brother or sister in arms, their muse is a truncated copy of their best friend. I would do that. Maybe a loved one died horrifically. Rickard says imprinting personalities. Heck yeah. You're maybe the muse, maybe by choice or force. A choice would be a loved one passes away, a grandparent, a brother, sister, a best friend, and you specifically go out of your way to find a personality imprint over top of the muse, right? Thank you, Dead Man. I think that would be a great story idea. And guess what? You could even, here's something strange, you could even have someone invited to the game that normally doesn't show up that really is your best friend or relative or loved one that's like, you know what, I'll be in the game. I don't really want to be in the combat part, but if I could just role play in the game, I'd love to be in it. And he's like, guess what? Here's a 3x5 card. You're my personality. Go play. Right? I could see this being done by force as well. Maybe the player character never wanted their rival from high school to be in their forehead. Maybe the player character deeply misses their best friend, and their muse is just a pale shadow of their best friend. And one day, just one day, they will be able to find the cortical stack of their one true love or something, to really communicate with the person they really want, and to give them a physical form so that they could be independent. But this pale shadow in their head, it's not really them. It could be a martial arts mentor. Maybe someone has learned an intergalactic martial arts style on a moon around Neptune or something like that, and a copy of their mentor is in the back of their head, giving them instructions. Maybe a player character is from an isolate community, they're from a clade that's out there isolated by themselves, and they treat it like a divine, like an angel. Maybe they treat it like a divinity. Maybe they treat it like a viral infection, like a Cthulhuoid thing in their brain, done by force. There's this dark, sinister thing that talks to them at night, keeps them awake. It's like a nightmarish thing that's in their brain, and no matter how many times they re-sleeve, it creeps back over and over and over again, forcing them to go into dangerous places, forcing them to confront the horrors of existential threats in this world, because all the player character wants to do is curl up and die, but their muse is like, no, you're gonna get out there. What happens if you're the one who doesn't make the choice? And they're like, no, I don't want to do this anymore. And the muse technically is really the character. The biological person is like a pale shadow of an individual, but the player character, the real one with the combat skills and everything, is actually the muse. That would be a fun way to flip the script on that as well. Kiwi says maybe there are tiers of muses based on how much processing power they have access to. I would say that. I suppose you could make the case that some have more access to abilities than others, meaning like law enforcement would have a muse that is hyper investigative, that when it scans a crowd, law enforcement scans the crowd in the spinning habitat, it can very easily identify people by their gait, by facial recognition, maybe even by pheromones, chemical release. Maybe it's able to access all of the sensors in the space station to come up with the top 95% perpetrators of a particular crime, to go after the PCs. Like, I could imagine law enforcement having that, but would that same muse have the ability to find a recipe for an excellent dinner? No, not at all, right? So yeah, Kiwi, I could see that happening. Maybe a player character is like a jack of all trades, and everywhere they go, they pick up more information for their muse. Like, oh, I picked up fashion and mechanical engineering and tarot card reading and I don't know, so many different things. brain surgery or something, and whatever. Like just these random bits and pieces of information leading up to something that's very that has a huge database of information. I think that would be very cool as well. Also, we haven't really. The last thing we're going to talk about is what does a muse look like? A muse could just be information in front of the face. It could be a three-dimensional image cast in front of someone's eyes, like the form of an angel, or a classical butler in Tie and Tails. It may look like a butterfly or a glowing ball that only the PC can see. Maybe a muse broadcasts itself to others around it to better socialize with people, so it just looks like a holographic image in everyone else's vision as well. It could be those things. Deadman says muses are a subtype of ALI designed, artificial limited intelligence, designed to be personal aides and companions. Most transhumans grew up with a muse at their virtual side. Muses have more personality and psychological programming than standard ALIs, and over time they build up an extensive database of their users' preferences, likes and dislikes, and personality quirks so that they may more effectively be of service and anticipate needs. Yeah. Oh, absolutely. And the strange thing is sometimes what we want is far different than what we need. I may want a pizza, but I might need a very healthy meal, right? So I might need, a healthy salad, and I could be screaming at my muse inside of my head, but when my muse, I don't know, puts in front of me my bad dietary choices, I might instead eat that salad. And then, of course, the people around me are like, oh, you're making healthy choices. And in my head, I'm like, yeah, right. Damn it, my darn muse ordered this for me. You know what I mean? So yes. I will end this on the fact that don't feel like you are forced to give anything and everything to your player characters. A muse is nothing but a tool. It is very much a cell phone that you can talk to. It's a personal assistant that sits in the background. It's not necessary. I know, I hear you. I know there's player characters out there right now who are like, oh, you mean I could put my muse inside of a drone? Could I then make copies of my muse and have like an army of drones floating around me and blah, 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 blah? Yeah, I get it. I know there's players out there who are going to want to break the system. And here's my answer to that, okay? Players, you're not going to want to hear this. When your player characters come to you with one of these outlandish ideas, tell them these ideas have already been done. As a matter of fact, every other NPC in the rest of the universe, yes, the gaming transhumanist universe, or at least our recent solar system, and outside the Pandora gates and eclipse phase, has the exact same capabilities. If you pull this stunt off, they will probably retaliate against you by using these exact same tactics and more. So I would say that while the player characters have access to this, so does every single other NPC. When the player characters go shake hands with the corporate oligarch and the PCs think they have one up on them, the oligarch during that handshake is sending their muse out to contact security to discover every single bit of information on the player characters they can find in a instant, right? Their muse is going out and going, I need to protect the life of this rich ancient Methuselah meth. Yes, that's altered carbon term. And this ancient meth who's 300 plus years old and is a multi-trillionaire. I need to protect their life. I'm going to contact their security forces. I'm going to activate the security drones that are going to flow out on the outside. I'm going to start pumping in the poison gas into the room. Remember, the NPCs have the exact same access to the MUSE as the NPCs, and so don't be afraid. Don't be afraid to do it. And you can foreshadow this as well. Foreshadow the fact that when the player's like, I want to send my MUSE to go do this thing to kill this person, right? To set up this thing to kill this person. You as a game master in game can say as the MUSE for that player character, I could do this thing, but I already see that the rich oligarch's MUSE has already set up a security network, and if you want me to penetrate their defenses, I'm not capable of doing that. You're going to have to do that physically yourself, because if I get out there, chances are I'm going to be deleted, and I'm going to alert security, and you're going to be in a bad state of affairs. I'm not going to put you at risk, right? A MUSE can decide not to do something in the best interests of its own player character. Even if it means like a player's like tells their MUSE, I need you to beam out from my body. I want you to cast out to my backup. And MUSE might go, no, I'm not going to do that. I don't want to leave you. And a player character could say, no, you need to leave me. You need to take this information, make sure it's secure, squirt out of here. You're my best friend. You're my lover. You are my dream consort. You are, my everything or something. So that could very well, a player character could very well have that kind of relationship with their MUSE if someone wants to delve into those kinds of relationships or something. Whether you want to, again, not necessary, but if someone wants to delve into very tight relationships that are far more intense, they can absolutely do something like that. By the way, for those of you, yes, below the video, yes, while you guys are out there during your resleeve, please like, share, follow, subscribe, anything. Just support the channel if you like long form content, or I don't know, it's kind of like you. Thank you very much for that as well. So while you're there out in the virtual reality waiting room, you might want to consider doing that as well. So guys, everyone out there, thank you so much for being part of the channel. Drop a line. There are ways below the video on YouTube and Twitch to contact me, or if you cease later on, just drop a comment. I read all of them, and just let me know what you think. Maybe there's some ideas you'd really like to get into later on, or maybe there's some questions that you really have, like, something's been bothering me, I would like this question answered. I'm here every Future Friday, so please check us out. Thank you very much. Everyone have a great Friday.